This is the High School Crossfire. Welcome back.
Planning for development, but where is the effectiveness of the development? This house believes that National Planning Authority for the National Planning Authority. This house blames National Planning Authority for the development in Uganda. Mlinda Daniel Prosper, second farmer. Standing firm like a mountain goat, we do blame the National Planning Authority for having failed in its roles to realize the development of Uganda. One, team negatives have failed to understand the planning process by the fact that we are not saying that the National Planning Authority are the implementers, but rather they have to follow up and monitor the plans that are being put in place. They come here and tell us about how the plans should be implemented effectively. However, she doesn't go an extra mile of telling us who the implementers are supposed to be. They come and tell us about political factors and government policies, blaming the corrupt officials. Yes, if they are blaming the corrupt officials, meaning they are coming to our side, because if corruption is in place, meaning National Planning Authority has not gone an extra mile to deal with the cases of corruption. Back to our case. In their roles, they have failed to coordinate and harmonize development planning in the country. By the mere fact that they have failed to prioritize by failing to identify the vulnerable sectors. Granted.
Can you tell us the people who is the NPA supposed to fight corruption? Is supposed to design plans?
The NPA is not supposed to design, the NPA is supposed to design corruption. Sorry, the NPA is supposed to design plans and it's not supposed to fight corruption. But it has to go an extra mile to monitor and follow up the plans they're putting in place so that if there is a corruption case in it, they're able to deal with it effectively so that the plan at the end of the day that they have put on paper is being achieved. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me go straight forward and ask and pose a question to them. By the mere fact that they are relying on corruption is what they have put on paper in place. Ladies and gentlemen, by the mere fact that they have failed to identify the vulnerable sectors like the health sectors and the income bringers to the people, which is agriculture, that has been allocated 3.5% of the budget, yet it employs 68% of the working Ugandans. And at the end of the day, we are blaming the National Planning Authority. Ladies and gentlemen, they have failed to monitor and evaluate effectiveness and impact of development programs by the mere fact that it's leading to plan manipulation for personal gains. This is where we are seeing the ministers themselves that are embezzling money that have been given for different projects in their ministries, and courageously team negatives come here and tell us how corruption is to be blamed by the national plan, is to be blamed, yet the national granted.
Yes, the ministers who are stealing money, are they part of the NPA or they are part of the political factors?
They have failed to understand tonight's resolution by the fact that they are going for the ministers. We are trying to tell them that the National Planning Authority has to monitor and evaluate effectiveness and impact of development programs. By the mere fact that, my dear judges, by the mere fact that they have failed to understand the roles of the National Planning Authority, I doubt if they have anything to tell us in tonight's resolution. Because if the ministers themselves that are being given money for different projects, for example, where we see Mr. Musinguzi accusing Dr. Musenero, the Minister of Science and Technology, for accusing about 31 billion shillings for vaccine manufacturing. And similarly, in Uganda, it's clearly stipulated that every year we lose 10 trillion on the account of corruption. Ladies and gentlemen, if the National Planning Authority has been able to bring the plan in order to manufacture the vaccines, and the money is instead being swindled by the ministers that are in charge, and no follow-up was made to recover the lost money, how does team negatives come to tonight's resolution to explain to us the effectiveness they expect of the plans to be put in place? I rest my case by saying that team negatives should come and affirm to us the alternatives that have given to us for having failed to execute their work. With all that upon aside, I rest my case.
This House blames the National Planning Authority for the underdevelopment in Uganda is today's resolution. Again, Mary, second speaker, team negative, AIRFORCE Secondary School. So what we fail to understand from Team Affirmative is the fact that they come and give us all the statistics that they have without giving us the source. How sure are we that they're actually telling us the correct information? They come and tell the House that, you know what, Uganda loses 10 trillion to corruption per year. We do not know where they get this source of information from. And we wonder how Uganda can lose 10 trillion to corruption, yet in the financial year 2023 to 2024, the money collected was 52.7 trillion Ugandan shillings, ladies and gentlemen. The next thing, they come and tell us that the National Development Plan 3 has failed totally, ladies and gentlemen. But we're actually seeing that out of the National Development Plan 3, they actually managed to achieve a success of only 17%, ladies and gentlemen. So we're actually seeing that Team Affirmative does not know the case that they are supposed to present to us. So they come and tell us that, you know what, National Planning Authority has failed to monitor and evaluate the progress of their plans. But we're actually seeing that according to the Daily Monitor of 2024, the National Planning Authority evaluated the plans and took a report to the government that National Development Plan 3 achieved only 17%. But you know what the government told them? The government told them, go and create another development plan, which is a National Development Plan 4. So we as Team allowed.
Honorable, is the money collected from taxes the only money in Uganda?
Thank you. The money I'm talking about is not the money that is collected from Uganda, but it's the general money which is collected from all sectors in Uganda, ladies and gentlemen. So we come and tell the House that the people who are supposed to implement these plans are the ones supposed to be blamed, not the National Planning Authority, because we're actually seeing that National Planning Authority is doing its role of planning. They are doing the role of planning. That is why we are having all these development plans from National Development 1, 2 and 3, and the current one, which is still under process, which is the National Development Plan 4. So we are seeing another reason as to why we have to not to blame the National Planning Authority, other political factors. We are seeing that we have over 50,000 local units in Uganda, and each of these local units has a minimum of at least 10 members, ladies and gentlemen, and we are seeing that each of these 10 members, at the end of the month, they receive a salary. Back to the political factors, we are seeing that the presidential advisors and their deputies receive a salary of 908.5 million Ugandan shillings per month, ladies and gentlemen. And we are seeing that these political units are consuming a lot of money instead of the funding body to derive all these funds and take them to what? To development sectors. They come and tell us that ministers are embezzling funds, meaning they're actually agreeing that we have other factors that are hindering what? Development in the country, ladies and gentlemen, because we are seeing the scenario of the iron sheets that were sent to develop Karamoja region. Who are the people who swindled it? Are the ministers. So the National Planning Authority had actually planned and said, let's take what? Iron sheets to develop the region of Karamoja. But Team Affirmative has actually come and recognized the point that ministers are the ones embezzling funds, and we ask them, are the ministers part of the National Planning Authority or they are part of their political sectors? They do not answer us, ladies and gentlemen. So that is why we as Team Negative, we are saying that the National Planning Authority should not be blamed for the underdevelopment of Uganda because they have totally played their role, they have monitored and evaluated, they have designed the plans that are supposed to be followed for the processes, but we are seeing that the hindrances are coming from the bodies that are supposed to what? Implement these plans, ladies and gentlemen. So we actually stand our grounds and say the National Planning Authority should not be blamed because we actually see that they are not working independently, because according to the Article 125, Part 3, it says that the authority shall perform its functions related to development and planning as the President may direct. So we actually see that people are working under strict what? Guidance and so we actually see the same article says that ministries will design plans. I beg to rest my case.
This is the High School Crossfire. We'll be back in a minute.